Okay, so I did literacy for my project of Into the Wild. Called the Wild is the first book, and it's by Jack London. It's about a dog named Buck, and he is passed from like owner to owner and is abused by each of these owners. But the last owner he comes to, his name is Thornton, and he kind of like saves him and treats him well, so Buck lives happily with him. I think Kristen enjoyed this book because he could relate with Buck by having like Ronald in his life, because he was like his savior and the one who he saw that helped him out. So I think that this relation helped him enjoy the book. White Fang is the next book, and it's by Jack London. And White Fang is the puppy of a she-wolf, and the she-wolf gets dismissed by the owner, and so it's only White Fang, and he gets tormented by the village puppies because he's just all on his own. So I think that McCandless likes this book because he sees the dog being tormented by other dogs, and he kind of felt like that whenever he worked at McDonald's, and all of the like employees and the co-workers and bosses said that he kind of smelled bad. I think that he took that as an insult and felt tormented and ganged up like White Fang did. The next book is White Men and Their Bad Hours by Robertson Jeffers. It's a poem, and I interpreted the poem of the wise men being like an older generation and the grasshoppers being a younger generation. So the author explains that the young generation didn't really have like a deep sense of thought, and they weren't really like they didn't have like hardcore jobs and stuff, so the older generation made fun of them because they wished that they had youth still in them. I think Chris saw himself as a wise man because he had a lot of people who didn't agree with what he was doing, and they didn't understand his actions and thought they were dumb. It says in the book, McCandless has already gone over the edge and just happened to hit bottom in Alaska. So I think the many people who thought of Chris's journey like this would have been among Jeffers' grasshoppers because they were inexperienced and didn't see the world like he did. Education of a Wandering Man is by Louis L'Amour, and this is a memoir of him. And when he was 15 years old, he dropped out of school against his parents' wishes, and he became a vagabond just like Chris. And so he loved books, and people, books, and experiences are what made up his education. I think that Chris has validation by this book, and that's why he likes continuing to read it, because he sees that this guy, he made it out okay on his own, and he went against his parents, and he became a vagabond and like traveled by nature and stuff. And so I think that by having somebody else do the same things that he was doing, he said that this was okay, and that he continued to read it and be happy with it. Dr. Zhivago is by Boris Pasternak, and this book basically revolves around the doctor's love life. He is married to a woman and has a son with her, and ends up having an affair with another lady, and he ends up leaving this lady and then going to another one and having 2 children. So I think that basically Chris saw the relation to this book of him leaving his family and going and like having different friends who he interpreted as family. So I think that is the basic similarity there. The Death of Ivan Lynch is by Leo Tolstoy, and Ivan, he was a lawyer, and he distanced himself from his family to focus on work. And one day he gets hurt and injured, and he doesn't think it's anything serious, but then it begins to worsen and stuff, and he realizes that it might be fatal. He tells his family about it, and they say, no, it's nothing, and brush it off, but he realizes that mortality is coming. Whenever his family brushes it off like that, he realizes that he's surrounded by artificial people, and so this causes him to distance himself even more. I think that Chris, once again, sees that there is a connection between just distancing yourself from your family, but I think that the main connection is that Lynch saw that these artificial people were those people around him. Chris saw this. He said that I'm tired of the plastic people that he worked with. That's what he wrote to Jan. And so I think that artificial and plastic both mean the same thing, and so they were both coming from the same way. And so Chris didn't feel like an insensitive jerk by saying this. He just saw that people around him weren't of the same value. Terminal Man is by Michael Critchett, and it's about a man named Harry Benson, and he's a computer whiz, and he gets in a serious car wreck, and this causes seizures, and he tries to harm people when he has these seizures, but whenever he is done having a seizure, he doesn't remember harming these people. So he goes under for a surgery where they put like computer and microchips in his brain, and it's supposed to help the seizures, but it doesn't. So I think that the connection here, and the reason that Chris liked this book, was because both the things that they both loved ended up killing them, and they were very dangerous subjects. Harry Benson, he liked computers, and this is what ended up hurting him. And Chris realized that there was danger in what he was doing, but he still pursued with it because it was what he loved. Walden is by Harry David Theron, and this is a memoir about Henry, and it was whenever he spent time at Walden Pond. He spent 2 years there, and he built a house all on his own, and he did this with no support from anybody at all. He spent time every day reading and enjoying the nature around him. And he also made personal social connections with people, like in towns around him and stuff. But mostly he just keeps to himself and stays focused on the nature. So I think that Chris sees Theon as a mentor, so to say. And he also likes to break away from normal civilization. I think they have a lot of similarities, and in some ways he tries to be like Henry in this. I think that another connection that they both had was that they both felt strongly against the government. Henry disliked the government during this time because they were for slavery, but Chris speaks whenever he first meets Wayne. He says, "How I view myself is of no concern of government's business." And so I think that Chris didn't like anything really governing him, so they both shared that connection. I think that the reason that all of these people enjoyed the book so much is because he had a personal connection with all of them, and that's what kept him going during his time in the wild.